Inside the buzzing heart of Madison Square Garden, the air crackled with a rare kind of electricity, the type that only comes when two men from two very different worlds collide under one set of lights. Tyson Fury, the towering giant from England, arrived as the undefeated heavyweight, a man who walked into his U.S. debut with a swagger that dared the crowd to doubt him. He laughed, he taunted, he embraced the villain's cape with complete comfort. Across from him stood Steve USS Cunningham, the pride of Philadelphia, a former two-time cruiserweight champion who had walked through wars in Europe, who had built his career on grit, discipline, and the heart of a military man. Tonight, those two roads were set to crash violently. The commentators sensed that something special was about to unfold, an unpredictable storm inside the ropes. From the very first bell, Fury talked, smirked, leaned in with taunts as if trying to break Cunningham. But behind the showmanship was tension. Tension thick enough to taste. Cunningham was the smaller man, yes, but he was laser-focused, eyes locked in, ready to prove that heart and timing can slice down even the tallest mountains. The crowd stood restless, waiting to see what this style clash would reveal. The hulking British giant with raw unpredictability, or the polished American veteran with the speed and discipline of a Navy-trained fighter. Every inhale inside the arena felt heavier. Every footstep echoed louder. What was supposed to be a boat-sized man versus a weltercraft quickly began feeling like destiny versus defiance. And as the fighters touched gloves, the story of the night was sealed. One man daring to conquer America, the other daring to topple a giant. In that moment, before fists flew and hearts pounded, nobody knew whose story would erupt louder. But everyone knew one thing. This was going to be a fight that would be replayed for years. The opening rounds unfolded like the first strike of a thunderstorm, sharp, fast, and loaded with danger. Cunningham stepped in with blazing speed, snapping jabs to the body and head, chopping at the tree in front of him. Fury, hands low and confidence high, tried to walk him down with showmanship and long strides, mocking him with taunts. "Come on, that ain't nothing." But the smaller man was landing clean, testing the giant's foundations. Fury jabbed, leaned, swayed, but Cunningham's punches were real. They thudded into the ribs, cracked against the chin, and began forcing the big man to rethink his swagger. And then, in round two, the earthquake struck. Cunningham timed a moment of Fury's aggression, slipping inside the giant's reach and unleashing a picture-perfect overhand right, one that whistled through the air like a missile and detonated against Fury's jaw. The undefeated giant dropped hard, falling backwards to the canvas. The arena exploded. Fury, for the first time in his career, actually tasted the danger of being the hunted instead of the hunter. He stayed down for 7 long seconds, a veteran's tactic, taking every heartbeat allowed to clear the fog. But the message was delivered. Cunningham, the smaller man, had just proven he could hurt the giant. The commentators went wild. Fans jumped to their feet. For a moment, the boxing world felt upside down. Fury rose with a smirk that looked more like disbelief mixed with defiance. But his legs were shaky, his ego dented. Cunningham surged in, knowing a once-in-a-career opening stood right in front of him. He pressed forward, firing combinations, forcing Fury to retreat, to hold, to stall. And suddenly the fight had changed. This was no longer Fury controlling a smaller opponent. This was Cunningham, the underdog, stealing the early story, demanding respect through power and precision. The second round ended with the giant damaged, the veteran emboldened, and the crowd roaring with the feeling that an upset was brewing. As the middle rounds unfolded, a new kind of fight emerged, one built not on speed alone, but on grit, adjustments, and the slow turning of momentum. Tyson Fury, battered early and humbled by the knockdown, began to dig into his greatest weapon, his size. Instead of trading at long distance, he used his 254-pound frame like a living wall, leaning on Cunningham, smothering him, draining the smaller man's energy with every clinch. Cunningham still fired sharp counters, snapping jabs, and fast right hands, but Fury's physical pressure was beginning to stack like bricks. The referee warned Fury repeatedly for holding, eventually deducting a point, but even that couldn't stop the tide that was turning. Fury wasn't just fighting with punches, he was fighting with gravity. Cunningham, disciplined as always, tried to create space, using angles and footwork, but every escape route was slowly closing. Fury's jab grew heavier. His right hand began finding openings, and his inside uppercuts, short, grinding punches, started wearing down the leaner man. Sweat glistened on both fighters, breaths grew heavier, but the story was shifting. Cunningham had the early brilliance, the spark, the knockdown, but Fury had the size, the recovery, and the ability to make a small ring feel even smaller. The pressure was relentless. Fury crowded him on the ropes, leaned chest to shoulder, whispered taunts between clinches, and fired thudding body shots that echoed like drums. The commentators saw the shift clearly. The giant was reclaiming ground, step by step, weight by weight. Cunningham still fought back bravely, landing flush counters, reminding Fury constantly that danger still lived in those hands. But the tide was turning. But Fury was no longer the off-balance showman from round one. He was now calculating, punishing, leaning, grinding. Every clinch was a reminder of the size gap. Every shove was a reminder of physics. Cunningham kept circling, but Fury cut the ring down inch by inch, stalking him like a giant with a plan crafted from pressure. The seventh round began, and Cunningham tried once more to fire combinations, but his legs no longer carried him with the same spring. Fury sensed the weakness. He moved forward deliberately, hands high, chin tucked, absorbing Cunningham's rights and answering with heavier artillery, uppercuts and straight rights that jarred the smaller man backward. The sound of the punches changed. They thudded deeper. Cunningham's corner shouted for movement, for angles, for discipline, but Fury's weight suffocated every escape. The pressure became overwhelming. Fury kept leaning, walking him down, making the ring feel like a cage. And as the minutes ticked toward the end of the seventh, the air inside the garden tightened once again. Something big was coming, something that felt like the inevitable final chapter of a story written in bruises and willpower. The end came like a collapsing wave, sudden, violent, undeniable. With just seconds left in round 7, Tyson Fury bullied his way inside one more time, using his forearm to create just enough space for the finishing blow. Cunningham, exhausted and cornered, tried to circle out, but Fury stepped forward with all of his 6 feet 9 inches, 254-pound frame and launched a monstrous right uppercut, short, brutal, perfectly placed. It detonated under Cunningham's chin like a hammer made of iron. Cunningham's body froze for half a heartbeat before collapsing to the canvas. The crowd gasped. The sound of him hitting the mat echoed like a drum. The referee began to count, but it was clear Cunningham was hurt badly. Eyes blinking in a slow fight, Fury walked away, with arms raised, triumphant, roaring at the audience that had doubted him minutes before. At the count of 10, it was official, a knockout victory for Tyson Fury in his dramatic U.S. debut. The fight had given everything: speed, strategy, heart, danger, and had showcased the best and worst of the giant from England. The arrogance, the resilience, the vulnerability, and finally the destructive finishing power. Cunningham received respect from all corners of the arena. He had fought with heart, skill, and bravery, knocking down the giant and making him dig deeper than expected. But tonight belonged to Tyson Fury, who survived adversity, adjusted his strategy, and imposed his size like a master of controlled chaos. The crowd buzzed as Fury shouted to the cameras, announcing himself to America with the swagger of a man who believed destiny had brought him here. This was the night Tyson Fury proved he could rise from the canvas, weather storms, and break down even the toughest warriors. It was a night that foreshadowed the champion he would one day become.